Hookzo 15s. Somewhere right now, a person is sitting in a car they can't really afford, in a neighborhood that's slightly out of their budget, wearing clothes that quietly signal a tax bracket they haven't quite reached. And they got a raise 6 months ago. They earn more than they ever have in their life, and they feel broke. Tension, 15 to 60s. This isn't a budgeting problem. It's not about lattes. It's not about discipline. What's happening to this person has a name. Economists have studied it for decades. Psychologists have mapped it. And yet almost no one talks about it honestly, because the system that causes it profits from your silence. The raise didn't make life easier. The promotion didn't create breathing room. More money came in, and somehow, mysteriously, more pressure followed it through the door. If you've ever felt this, you're not bad with money. You're human. And you've been caught inside one of the most quietly devastating financial traps ever designed. Body. Let's go back to 1899. A sociologist named Thorstein Veblen coined a phrase that was ahead of its time by about 100 years. He called it conspicuous consumption. The idea that humans don't just buy things for function. They buy things to be seen, to signal, to tell the world a story about who they are. Veblen was watching the Gilded Age wealthy parade their excess around. But he could just as easily have been watching your Instagram feed in 2026. Because something changed in the last 20 years. The signals got cheaper to fake and infinitely harder to resist. Here's the first thing nobody tells you about earning more money. Your reference group changes before your bank account does. When you get promoted, when you move into a better neighborhood, when you start flying business class on work trips, your brain quietly recalibrates what normal looks like. The people around you shift, and with them, your baseline expectations shift too. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. You work harder, you earn more, you buy more, you feel better, for about 3 weeks. Then the new car becomes just your car. The new apartment becomes just your apartment. And you start looking up again, toward the next thing. But here's where it gets darker. Lifestyle inflation isn't just psychological. It's structural. It's baked into the choices available to you when you earn more. The neighborhoods where high earners live are expensive by design. The schools attached to those neighborhoods cost money, formally or informally. The social events in your new professional circle involve restaurants where the bill is just a number you pay. The vacations your colleagues take become the vacations you feel compelled to at least approximate. You didn't choose this. The environment chose for you. A 2025 study found that Americans earning over $150,000 a year reported feeling financially comfortable at nearly the same rate as Americans earning $80,000. That gap in income produced almost no gap in perceived financial security. Sit with that for a second. Nearly double the salary. Almost identical financial anxiety. So where is the money going? This is the part that most finance content refuses to touch because the answer isn't a spreadsheet. The answer is identity. When you earn more, you don't just upgrade your lifestyle. You upgrade your self-concept. And self-concepts are extraordinarily expensive to maintain. Think about the person who gets their first 6-figure job. They feel, for the first time in their life, like they've arrived somewhere. Like they deserve certain things. A decent apartment, not a cramped one. A car that runs reliably. Clothes that don't look like they came from a panic buy. These aren't luxuries in their mind. They're the basic floor of the identity they've worked toward. And every year, that floor gets higher. But here's the trap inside the trap. The financial products available to high earners are designed specifically to absorb any surplus income before it can become wealth. Mortgages scale with income. Car financing scales with income. Private school tuitions scale with neighborhood prestige. Travel credit cards with annual fees that feel reasonable given your spending. Gym memberships, subscription stacks, premium, everything. The economy doesn't just allow you to spend more when you earn more. It aggressively, intelligently guides you toward spending more. And the cultural messaging around you does the same thing, because lifestyle inflation isn't just about individual weakness. It's about a consumer economy that is fundamentally threatened by people who earn well and spend conservatively. There's a reason you don't see many aspirational ads featuring a person in a quiet house with no debt. The aspirational image is always bigger, always more, always slightly out of reach. That's not an accident. That's architecture. Now, here's what I find genuinely fascinating about this moment we're in. The shrinking middle class isn't disappearing equally in both directions. Research from 2026 shows that much of the movement is upward, into what's being called the upper middle class, households earning between $100,000 and $250,000 a year. These are people who are objectively doing well by any historical standard. And yet the data on their financial anxiety, their sense of scarcity, their feeling that they can't get ahead, looks almost identical to the middle class they left behind. Because they moved into a new bracket. But the bracket above them got more visible too. Social media didn't create this problem, but it poured gasoline on it. Because for most of human history, your reference group was geographically limited. You compared yourself to your neighbors, your coworkers, the people actually in your life. Now your reference group is global, curated, and filtered to show you only the peak moments of people at the absolute top of your aspirational ladder. You're not comparing yourself to your neighbor. You're comparing yourself to the highlight reel of people who are 10 steps ahead of you and carefully selecting what to show. This is why the feeling of financial inadequacy has quietly become a cross-class experience. It doesn't matter where you sit on the income ladder, there's always someone above you, and the platform will always make sure you can see them. Climax. Here is the central insight, the one that ties all of this together. Lifestyle inflation is not a failure of willpower. It is the predictable, almost mathematically inevitable result of living inside a system that monetizes your desire to feel like enough. Every time you earn more, the gap between where you are and where you feel you should be doesn't close. It widens, because the definition of enough is not a fixed number. It's a moving target, and the entire engine of modern consumer capitalism depends on it never stopping moving. The raise didn't make you richer. It made you a higher spending participant in a game designed so that you feel perpetually behind. And the cruelest part? The people who escape this trap don't do it by earning more. They do it by deciding, usually at significant social cost, that the target stops moving. That enough is enough, right now, with what they have. That is one of the most psychologically difficult things a human being can do in 2026. Because it requires you to opt out of the story your entire social world is telling you about what success looks like. Ending. The person in that car, in that neighborhood, in those clothes, they're not failing at money. They're succeeding at something they never consciously signed up for. They're succeeding at spending exactly as much as they earn, at every income level, for the rest of their lives. Unless they see the trap. The question isn't how much you earn. The question is whether the system gets to decide what you do with it. And that question is worth sitting with for a lot longer than the length of this video.